Here's the final one for today. Nicolas Sarkozy, no way to let the French colonies of Africa have their own currencies. Apparently, the former president of the French Republic was again exemplified in shocking remarks this Tuesday. In an interview with BMTV television channel, he said that the best way to preserve the health of the French economy is to keep the FCFA as the only currency usable in the former French colonies in Africa. France cannot allow its former colonies to create their own currency to have total control over their central banks. If this happens, it would be a catastrophe for the public treasury that will lead France to the rank of 20th world economic power. There is no question, therefore, of letting the French colonies of Africa have their own currencies. What is the CFA? The CFA franc is the name of two currencies common to several African countries, partly comprising the Central African Franc Zone, CMAC, and the Franc Zone of West Africa, UEMOA. Principle 4 is the most technical. First, it should be noted that the Banque de France opens an account for each central bank, one for the BCEAO and one for BCAC, an account for each of the member states of the zones. How it works when a country in the CFA zone exports to a country other than France. See this, other than France, it collects currencies that feed the central bank concerned. And this central bank has an obligation to transfer at least 50% of the foreign exchange earnings to its account open in the Bank of France. So far, it is the Bank of France that manages 50% of the currencies of the Franc Zone countries. Finally, it should be made clear that the governments and execution bodies of this whole system, the board of directors, the supervisory board, etc., include representatives of the French state who have a right of veto and paid to preserve the interests of their country, which cannot be criticized elsewhere. This is something that we've been saying for years, my group, I should say, since 2008 or so, that this, let's be honest, we said that this, with China coming into the to the continent and threatening the franc of France, that this could cause the breakup of the EU, point blank simple, which is related to probably why the UK decided to, hit the eject button and get out of the EU. They don't believe that France can hold on to its colonies in the face of Chinese encroachment. And if they are basically able to push the Chinese off the African tit, that there goes a quarter of their GDP. I do believe that France has like $17 billion in reserves from the CFA, from the African countries. Now, the GDP of France, I do believe the GDP of France is, I think is it 17 billion, 17 trillion. I think it's 17 billion of reserves that are there. And the GDP of France, if I'm not mistaken, is about $3 trillion. Maybe less than that. Yeah, I think it's about $3 trillion. I have to look it up, about the GDP of France. But we estimated that a quarter of the GDP of France comes from where? Comes from the African continent. If, and Sarkozy said, if they allow the Africans to actually manage their own accounts and let the African countries freely do business with the rest of the world, then France, who knows, it could be a quarter of the GDP, it could be a third of the GDP of France that goes down the shitter. And if that happens, there's going to be riots in France, and everybody knows it. And if there's protests and riots and unrest in France, then they probably will exit the European zone. And if France exits the European zone, and right after Great Britain, guess what's going to happen to the EU? It's going to go downhill like a rock, like a boulder falling off a cliff. But who knows what the future holds? I mean, there's plenty of implications to what we just said. A few other military actions have happened because of this. I'm not going to mention it here in a recorded video. You can, if you're one of my ardent followers, you probably already know what I'm talking about. But words to the wise, keep an eye on this front and center, because this could have ripples, not only here, but all over the world. With that, I'm going to jump off of here. This is BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one.